became an atheist. You could say I've always had some sort of doubt about whether or not there was a God. I spent much of my teenage years actually researching that and looking into like the different religions and such. For a good 3 or 4 years I was actually Wiccan. Never found any reason or use for any of the so-called magic. From there I went on to just research more into like Hinduism and Buddhism. And Buddhism really caught my attention because it didn't profess that there was any particular god that you could not look through history and find. You could actually find out who Buddha was. He was an actual prince, and that really attracted me. It was really all about being into yourself, and that just wasn't enough. How I viewed God was more of how our founding fathers had viewed God, as this force of nature rather than this old man in the sky watching us, and, judging everything that we do. So for a good part of my life I was actually a deist. I'd say for most of my adult life I was a deist. We discussed the nature of God, and the thing I found odd at first was accepting that the universe could just start on its own, or that there could be no cause for the universe. It could have always just existed. And that got me thinking, along with other points that the guy made. One of the points was, if God is infinite, how could he interact with a finite universe that we live in? What sort of consequences would that have? Especially with him being infinitely powerful, he could not possibly interact with the universe without completely destroying it, because he's infinitely powerful, and thus he'd have an infinite gravity, which would just suck the universe in at an infinite pace, and all of that just became impossible to sort of contend with in my own mind, and I couldn't reason how that would happen either. That was the moment that really did it for me. Was thinking upon that, and upon all of the other things, all of the claims that have been made in the name of God, all of the claims that have been made about God, that no one has ever seen God, no one's ever talked to God, no one's ever touched God, no one's ever met God, or even met somebody who's met somebody who's met somebody who's met God. They all pretty much are just going off of what they think God is. And so that pretty much drove me away from religion in the first place, but in the end, it was all about whether or not God could actually interact with the universe. And that pretty much summed it up for me, and he can't. So there must not be a God, and I still have my doubts. But until somebody shows me actual evidence for what their God does, and what they claim their God can do, that is beyond the natural world, beyond what we can experience through our own senses, through other people's senses, through anything that's here in the natural world. If somebody can show me something that's actually supernatural that exists, and not have it be something that can be explained away, I would gladly believe them.